Hi, I am working on finishing off some of my sewing makes before I start on making new makes. I have technically cheated on that, but this week I actually discovered that I had a pattern that I cut either last spring, summer, or fall. I don't really remember, and that I haven't made. It is a pattern that is new to me. It's a dress, so the weather still looks not springy at all out there, but summer and spring will come. So yeah, I thought that I should make it before starting on cutting new fabrics. The sewing pattern is by Lydia Naomi, and I do believe she has a video on it on her YouTube channel. I will probably just follow the written instructions and yeah, make it. So I'm bringing you along. Let me go grab it. I probably need to iron it. So the pattern is called the Billow Frock by Lydia Naomi, as I have mentioned. So yeah, this is it. It's already all cut. It was bunched up in a pile of fabrics, and that's why I kind of like just forgot about it totally. So the hard work is already done. Now it's just time for sewing. I am starting by testing my stitch. I always make sure to use a fabric scrap to test the stitch, the tension, and just make sure that everything is aligned with the type of fabric I am sewing. Starting with attaching the sleeves to the bodice, you had to serge, stitch, or base stitch rather, gather, and then sew. So those are pretty much the steps that we will be using along the way to make this dress. Done for today, and this is how far along I am. This is the front, and this is the back. It's a bit longer. I just pinned at the shoulder seams to kind of like show you. And yeah, these are the balloon sleeves. They are just attached for now at the armhole with the front and the back. Next step would be to do the bias tape around, which I haven't cut yet, and I don't know how much fabric I still have, so I need to figure that out. With the fabric scraps I had left, I was creating the bias tapes for the neck, and oh boy was I playing it close with the blade and the table. Thank God I didn't go off the mat. Here I am just quickly showing how to make the bias binding. So you just take your pieces, you lay them in a 90-degree angle. I usually leave a little bit of fabric, like a 1/4 inch, on the top edge. And I always make sure to test before stitching that I am sewing on the right angle and that the piece, once sewn, will be continuous. Looking at the instructions, and I just realized that she has a single bias tape, but I made a double, so I need a 1-inch bias tape. So I don't know if I should keep it, because I thought that it would still provide kind of like structure to the neck, but there will be an elastic in it, or if I should just go ahead and it's sewn with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which means that I would need kind of like the 1 inch here and then a 1/4 and a 1/4, so 1.5. Yeah, I think to keep it just easier / similar to the instruction, I will just do that. So I'll need to cut this. I'll just go flatten it again with the iron so that I can properly cut it to 1.5 and then press it again. So I have made the mistake. I shouldn't have cut the bias at 1.5 inches, because if I wanted to have the edges folded a 1/4 inch each, that means that I would need a 1/2 inch each side, which brings me to 2 inches. But I checked the instructions, and the elastic that will be put through the space once it is all folded is a 1/4 inch. So I'm just gonna go for it. I will sew it a 1/4 inch, and then for the other side, when I will put it basically flat, I will just make sure that it is folded in a way that the space left where the elastic will be put through is a 1/4 inch. So yeah, I think it should be fine, instead of me having to recut another bias and do all the other steps again. We'll see. Hopefully it will work. Should be fine. I don't know what's happening, but it's not the right size either. How did I miss that? I'm pretty sure I measured correctly. Okay, well, that's fine. I'll just add another strip. And I think that will be... I didn't cut it on the bias, but I didn't push it, or I mean stretched it. But even that, I still have all of this space to cover, like from here to here. So I'll just add another strip. It will probably be longer than it should, but just to be safe than sorry, then have to sew all of this around and then not have enough. The sewing, sometimes you gotta troubleshoot. It comes with the territory.
Later that day, which is why it is much darker, I have been able to add the piece of the bias binding to make sure that it covers the whole neck. And then I sewed the binding and neck edge together, ironed it, and understitched it. Here I am just showing a close-up of how the neck turned out. So even though the binding wasn't 1 inch as per the instructions, it was sufficient enough to be able to pull through the 1/4 inch elastic with ease. After finishing off with the top and attaching the pockets to the first tier, you pretty much repeat the steps for the front and back tiers. Base stitch, gather, and then sew the layers together. You just have to be careful here, which is clearly mentioned in the instructions about the layout of the curves, or like, is the curve going up or down? There is probably a better way to describe that, but anyway, this is what I have in mind right now. Here I was trying to show how slowly and very carefully I go about stitching the gathers. It really doesn't need to be perfect. I don't mind if it's not like gathered equally across the way, but it does help to have the gathers as the top layer rather than the bottom layer. So the one you are looking at, as it is much easier to switch things around or place them in a way that you see fit as you go along. I do go out of focus at some point here, but I still wanted to show that.
I finished sewing the binding for the neck. I put the elastic in it based on the measurement for the size that I got, which is an XX small. It does look like it is bigger, like wider, so I didn't sew the opening hole yet until I kind of like finish sewing the gathering and see how it looks. So if I need to shorten it, it would be quicker to just pull the elastic and shorten it. So now I have all the front done in terms of the top tier and the bottom tier. So it's starting to take shape. Still looks like not much. Oh, also, I realized that I didn't have enough fabric for the bottom front tier. I don't know actually, I haven't double checked for the back one, but the front one I didn't have enough fabric to cut it on the fold, so the camera cut because I didn't have any more battery, so I don't know when exactly what was I saying when it did that. But what I was saying was that I realized that I had cut the bottom front tier not on the fold, probably because I didn't have enough fabric to kind of like have the whole piece. So, but you can barely see it because of the gathering. Here is the, where is it? The seam down the middle, kind of easier to see from the inside. So I have a seam there. I didn't check if the back bottom tier has the same thing if I cut it on the fold or not. Maybe yes, maybe not. Either way, with the gathering and everything, you can barely see it. So yeah, so now that the front is kind of like done, I only have to do the back again. So the back top tier and the bottom tier, and I guess then we'll just do the side seam and the hem. So it's coming along together slowly but surely.
Here I am at the step of sewing the side seams together. So you go from the binding that is created for the sleeves, which will be sewn after, up to the hem. I just made sure to align every seam together. For the hem, I just used my serger stitch as a guide. So I serged the hem and then I used the edge of the serge stitching to fold it and then fold it again.
Here is the dress fully completed. I didn't end up changing anything. So I talked about perhaps shortening the elastic of the neck, but I didn't ended up doing that. I just used the measurement as recommended by the pattern. I am currently wearing it with a bra. I do think that it is a little bit, could be risque. And yes, I do think you can see my bra straps on the back, but I decided to just leave it as is. I'll wear it a couple of times and we'll see if I prefer it a little bit more gathered with the elastic or not. But yeah, that's the kind of like the good thing about it is that you can adjust it to your preferences and your needs. Other than that, I love it. It has a lot of movements and swirling, so it will be great for the warmer weather. And yeah, I 100% recommend. I didn't mention, yes, the fabric is rayon. So it does have a lot of like fabric obviously and body, but because the fabric is lightweight, it doesn't feel, I don't feel it really, but it might be a little bit heavier if you use kind of like a heavier fabric. So yeah, let me know what you think. I hope you liked the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time.